Many people worry about running out of money in retirement, and a lot of them excessively so. Let's look at some reasons that might cause you to run out of money and what you can do about it. So, the first reason might be taking the 25% tax free cash from your pension in one lump sum at the very start of your retirement. So, here's a great asset that you've got, and instead of making it last a lifetime or 10, 20 years, you're just spending it all in 1 year, maybe just completely frittering it away on a new car and some kind of house extension. So, if you do things like that, you are setting yourself up for potential problems later on. And often people run out of money because it's a compounding of things that happen rather than just one event that occurs during their retirement. Another reason might be a stock market crash. And the problem is that people aren't really prepared for this, mainly in terms of how they invest. So they need to make sure in retirement that they've got an adequate cash buffer that they can draw on maybe short-term government bonds or some kind of money market fund, and that can tide them over while equities are performing badly. Then also they can do things like maybe regulate their expenditure according to how the stock market is performing, and then also invest more defensively in retirement. And again, the issue here is not to be too defensive. Some people invest in something like Vanguard Life Strategy 20 because, oh, I'm risk averse, I've been told it's low risk, when actually these sorts of funds can have very low rates of return. And if something bad happens to them, they can stay underwater for many years. So you have to be careful how you're structuring your portfolio. And then you don't want to go the other end of the spectrum and be too heavily invested in something like Scottish Mortgage, which, although, yeah, it's trying to target like tomorrow's winners today, it can have valuation bubbles. And again, that can take many years to come back to its former peak. And so, with these long drawdowns, that can leave you exposed in retirement. So, you need an investing strategy that is much more defensive, maybe looking at minimum volatility equities or value equities, and then possibly a mixture of investments. So you might want some gold in there, or maybe some kind of infrastructure fund or some high dividend paying investments. And then this diversification can help when stock market returns are variable because you've got different asset classes that you can rely on. Some people run out of money because they have excessive debts. So they retire even though they've got mortgages on rental properties and mortgages on their main residence. And we just don't know what's going to happen with interest rates in the future, or even the availability of mortgages at a decent rate if you're, say, 80 years old with no earned income, you don't have any job. People also tend to underestimate inflation. So if you've got an income portfolio, you're getting lots of dividends, those dividends might not rise in line with the cost of the things that you have to buy, like a council tax bill going up by 9%. And similarly, I had a rental property during COVID. I didn't put the rent up at all. When inflation was like double digits, I only put the rent up by maybe about 5%. So a lot of things are, they call them index linked, but they're not of complete one-to-one correlation with inflation. And even things like a defined benefit pension, you'll find it'll grow by the maximum of like 5% or inflation. So if there is an inflation spike, then that could impact your retirement. Another potential issue is income tax in later years. So if you take from your ISA first or tax-free cash from your pension in the early years, you'll find you can have very low tax bills, even no income tax. But then later on in life, if you've only got taxable pension left, you could have a tax bill of like £7,500 on a £50,000 income, but you don't have the means to actually service that tax bill. So the tax bill keeps eating away at your wealth, and then slowly your wealth declines. Some people run out of money because their spouse passes away, and maybe that spouse leaves money to children from a previous marriage rather than to yourself. You might need to consider taking out life insurance, even though you're retired, to cover yourself if you're not financially independent from your spouse. You can have a problem of longevity where you just live a lot longer than you thought. Here you could possibly buy an annuity, and then that would continue to pay out when you're 90, 95, 100, and the annuity rates are better the older you get, because when you die, the annuity dies with you. So it might be an idea just to have a look at what annuities can offer each year, just so that they're in the back of your mind. Some people struggle with money because their workplace pension maybe has excessive bonds within it. So they could have been lifestyled by this workplace pension so that the returns in retirement are much less than they were when they were working. And the possible solution here is to understand exactly how your workplace pension is invested, and maybe to take control of it and to migrate it to your own self-invested personal pension, SIP, and then you have much more control over the sort of returns that are going on. So here's a quick summary of the points. For a market crash, you can have a cash buffer, the 25% tax-free, maybe don't take it up front. Income tax hitting you in later years, take from a mixture of ISA and pension throughout your retirement. You've got excessive debts, pay some of them off before you retire. Underestimating inflation, you just need to factor that into your cash flow modeling plans. And if poor health might be an issue, you could consider health insurance. If death of a spouse might be an issue, you could consider life insurance. If you end up living longer than you think and you're quite healthy in later years, maybe an annuity is for you. If the workplace pension is poor, then you just need to take control of it, have a better investing strategy. If you're too keen on investing in AI and some kind of tech small cap garbage, you need to reposition your portfolio so that it's more protecting your wealth than growing your wealth. If you have a sudden emergency spend, then you really need to then have more flexible withdrawals in the future and better budgeting in the preceding years. I think a combination of investing effectively for retirement and having a more defensive strategy, looking at how you access your funds in retirement in a tax efficient way, and being adaptable around your expenditure is likely to mean that there's a low probability of you running out of money in retirement. If you retire with limited funds and maybe a modest annual budget, so you can't easily flex your expenditure, then an annuity might be a good idea for you, and then that will protect your income stream. In terms of the planning that's required, you need to put together a glide path for your wealth so that you can see how you're drawing down on that wealth over time, and you know whether you're above or below your plan. And if you're below the plan, then you're going to have to rein back your expenditure until you come back on track with your objectives. I'm Ian Shadrack, a qualified accountant with over 30 years experience. I've helped over 200 people put together wealth plans and cash flow models so that they can have a successful retirement. I sell a retirement calculator spreadsheet through my website, and then they also get a 40-minute coaching session with me after I've populated their model to explain how it all works, so they can get a lot more confidence around their finances in retirement. If that's of interest to you, I'll put a link in the video description.